Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Welcome everybody to our February 24th meeting. We got some really exciting stuff to share today on DPM, and hopefully we can go through and get everybody excited about what's out there and what's available to them. Right, I think popping in. So I want to start by just going through our new structure with this year. One of the things that we changed is we are still trying to meet bi-weekly, even though there's been a couple of these meetings at the beginning of the year that have been 3 weeks apart. Our goal is to meet every other week. And our vision has changed a little bit. Last year, I kept talking about digital services, but a lot this year, what we're going to talk about is that whole prospect of digital transformation. And I know it means a lot of things to a lot of people, but with digital transformation at its core, if you look at all the definitions, they all come back to the same core, right? It's changing the way that you do business today. And a lot of what we're doing in modeling these services and setting everything up is actually to create new business models, new ways where IT interacts with the rest of the business. That's a lot of what we're focusing on as we go through these, you know, the CSDM parts, and today we'll go through DPM, right? Is that core of ServiceNow. And I always say it's the service in ServiceNow that a lot of people forget about. A lot of people really focus on incidents or requests, but that's what we're looking at, that part. We end up in the CMDB a lot, but we're also going to come back out. Today, we're going to go a little higher level, and we're going to look, instead of looking at the CSDM and all the objects, we're going to tie back to that, but we want to look at the benefits that we start squeezing out of that as we set up our structures in the CMDB. Right, so our mission is really to help people support these digital transformation initiatives that they have going on, and come up with new ways to support the business through the different services that they offer. There's a lot of shared work, and you'll get a newsletter for those of you on for the first time. You'll get a newsletter, and in that newsletter, I'll have links to all that shared work. And there's a lot of stuff in there. We probably have to go through and do a little bit of cleanup, but there's a Google Drive out there. If you guys don't have it, maybe somebody could post it in the chat. But that has all the links to all the stuff that we've done over the past, in addition to all the recordings we've done over the last, I think about 18 months of recordings are in there. So the hosting group for this, I'm on the enterprise architecture team at ServiceNow. And going forward, we'll be the hosting group. So there'll be some changes over the next few months that we'll talk about. But basically, that's going to be my team that's basically supporting this group from the ServiceNow side. But also today, we have a lot of people from product management comes on a lot to help me out. And we have some of them on the phone today to answer any questions that anybody might have. Jeff Ube is the one who runs the EA team. So he's kind of the sponsorship for us going up. And we'll talk about what, like I said, what some of that means going forward as we get to knowledge and other things like that, we can go ahead and meet as the group. So anybody on for the first time today? You can just go ahead. If you just drop your name in the chat, so I have a register of you being here for the first time, and everybody could say hello on chat and welcome you. Just your name and where you're from, and if it's your first time. This way we can comment on the newsletter and stuff too, on who's new and what groups we have that are new. So today we have about 440 people or so on the invite that are non-ServiceNow people, and then another 175 people or so from ServiceNow that come to these meetings. All right, welcome people from Sony. Let's see a couple people coming in. All right, so today's agenda, we want to have a look at DPM, and DPM is available. I put that Rome 5 or above because I've had calls from people that are trying to install it on. They say I have Rome, but it's not working. So you do have to be on patch 5 or above. And you know, even patch 4, it'll tell you that your version is incompatible. And then we want to talk today. I think we have a few people that installed it. That if you could just drop your name in chat too. Has anybody installed DPM? Has anybody gone to the store and pulled it down? If you can say yes, just on yours, I'll definitely ask you to come up and give us your first impressions. We want to hear that for sure. And then I want to go into talking about, like, what do we do with this now that we have it installed? Right? It's not the same people that we have that are closing tickets in ServiceNow or submitting tickets in ServiceNow, but now there's this kind of third area of people that we can invite into ServiceNow to use these new views. And over the years, a lot of people they've come to us and they say, okay, how do we report on these services? And there's all kinds of side initiatives with performance analytics where people are defining reports and people going into ITBM if they're doing projects. So there's all these different disconnected things that I think we can really bring together here and use this as a big game changer for how we position ServiceNow and how we talk about ServiceNow. I'm going to go through the install just real quick for those of you who haven't pulled it down yet. I see quite a few people have it installed. That's awesome. But if you do go on to the install, onto the App Store, the way you can look for it is just look for Digital Portfolio. And then once you get to Digital Portfolio Management is the plugin. And the first thing it's going to do is a lot of people are calling me saying, hey, John, you said it works on Rome, but look, only San Diego is the compatibility, right? So you're going to land and it's going to say San Diego. And if you do have it, San Diego, you can go ahead and download it here. Right, so I can go ahead and request it here for my San Diego instance. But if you're still on Rome patch 5, you got to go to other app versions. And then what you do is you pull this down. So you have to pull down this 105 version. So you're using 105 on the Rome releases. And then you go to view details and you'll see it switches you now right to the Rome patch 5 version. So that navigation isn't as obvious. And I've got a lot of calls about that. The people that I work with that have it installed. So I did hard link those, right? So there is the hard links for these if you're on Rome. So that you can just keep that as a shortcut.
I'm sorry. Hey, is it me? Is it me? I'm sorry. My apologies. All right.
Okay, so that's a little bit about the install. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Okay, so when you do find it, you won't find the Rome one. You got to kind of backtrack yourself into the Rome one. All right. And that hopefully saves a few headaches for people. The other thing is besides having the share for our group, which is on the Google share, we also have an instance we share. The instance that we share, the Digital Service Workgroup instance, whoever emails me on this call, I just give you admin login. So if you go on this instance today, you will see that DPM is installed. And let me go back here just so you can see how to get to it. So have your login in the instance. Don't everybody log in because this is only a little dev instance, so it gets pretty slow with a lot of logins. But if you go onto the instance and you log in, you will be able to search for Digital Portfolio Management. And then you'll see that the workspace that's in there, that DPM workspace. So it's under Digital Portfolio Management. And if you're also using the the new home screen, you'll be able to find that as a workspace that comes off the new home screen. Now, when you go into Digital Portfolio Management, and you'll have everything, when you log into this, you'll have everything I have on here, except for the personal portfolio. Like I have my own personal portfolio. So what you'll want to do, and hey, Lou, are you on the phone?
Yes, Sean, I'm here.
All right. So I know Lou has some personal portfolios set up. Has anybody else set up a personal portfolio? All right, I'll go through it real quick. So what we can do here is I have my personal one. I have new personal portfolio. And then you could just give it a quick name. And then this is owned by me. So only I'll be able to see it. So if you log in with your user, you won't see this one. So you can go ahead and define your own for the first time. Then you can go to add items. And over the years, right, we've had this instance now for about 2 years. So there's been a lot of items defined. Some the people have in this group and some other things. So what you can do is you can go look for things that are in the instance. Right now, what the Digital Portfolio Management looks at today are going to be business service offerings, and business applications. I thought we had some business apps in here. Interesting. So I have to put some business apps in there. Oh, that's why, because I did email. So that search, right? So I could put in some business apps. So I could put a couple business apps in there I'm looking at, and then I could put in my, a few services and service offerings. Now you'll see here the business service, right? That means it's in the business service table, right? So there's the new tables that we talked about in CSDM 4.0. So instead of CMDB CI service, it's CMDB CI service business, I think it is, right? So the new one that we talk about in the CSDM 4.0 white paper. So that means it's in the right table as the business service. Okay, and now what you have to do, what's a little tricky on here, a lot of people will say next, but what you have to do before you hit next is I have to add these selected items. So I have to click on these little sections to add the items in there.
Let me get you get your ID number, please.
Oh, somebody's not on mute. Whoever's getting the ID number. All right, we'll go next. And once I go next, right, it added those items now into my portfolio. And I can say create here. And this is a good way, right? We didn't do any structuring except for those quick adds of things, right? But these are things that I want to see that are top of mind now that are in my portfolio group.
Joshua.
Okay, so I can do is I can click on. Oh, is that Michelle? Okay. EMEA private network. I can go look at my business service offering, and that'll bring me right into the offering from here. Now, one of the things on the offering as we step through, you'll be able to explore some, but the more you have installed, the more you're going to see up here. So if you're using, if you have idea set up, right, and you're classifying the ideas by the service offering, you'll see those pop up here. If you don't have it installed, right, it's not going to show up for you. But if you want to, in our instance, like if we go to EMEA private network and I pop up in my ideas, if you just want to see how some of the wiring works for this, what you can do is go in here and go into the idea list. And then for the business service or service offering, I'll show you here. If we just put EMEA private network, and then I come back to that view. Here we go. Now, what I should have here is I should now see, because I have that one idea that has the EMEA private network, I now have that idea that's linked. So a lot of people are waiting, right, to see, do I have to have those SDLC components before this stuff starts working? And the answer is no. You'll see any demands that are labeled with the service or the service offering or the application will start showing up here. Now, there's one thing I'm going to add in here that's not in here today, and I left it out just I want to keep it simple today. But one thing that's not in here is if you're using the innovation planning in ITBM, you will be able to do roadmaps on here. So any of your demands that are linked or any of your epics that are linked, it's really cool that you'll be able to see all of your roadmaps that this is associated with. This business service offering will show up on the top. So you can bring up those roadmaps, and maybe that's something, if somebody has that set up, something that we want to look at next time. Or even if you want to come in here and set it up, we could turn on the plugin and talk about roadmaps next time. But today, I purposely left them out just so we can keep it simple. Now, the other thing on the plan phase, right, that we're going to bring up things that are important. So needs attention is over here, kind of like the service owner workspace. And you'll be able to go ahead and do different definitions on here too. As we move through, right, from plan, where we're looking at ideas and demands, all the stuff that we'll look at early on, now we're moving into the build. So what are actually projects that we're working on now as they move through the pipeline, right? So all the active projects will show up here. And then finally into the run phase. And I don't know if I have run information in here, but I'm going to go back to one. So let me go back and I'll show you a portfolio in our instance that actually, let me go back to my home page. And that's the personal portfolio, right? We're jumping directly to these things, directly to these items that are service offerings, services, applications. Those are top of mind things. So as a solution owner, we're going to talk about that role again and go over what Caitlin went over a couple meetings ago. You have a bunch of those things, but you want to slow to load on me. You want to go ahead and link those things that are top of mind, but you also want to have that portfolio structure still. So in our instance, because like I said, I know a lot of you have been in here creating your own portfolios. And the one I have wired with some data is the all enterprise services. So if you are logged in, you come to all enterprise services, you'll see that there's a bunch of directories underneath here. And underneath here, we want to go to customer service and support is the one directory. Now we're going to talk about the persona for this a little bit, but if you start to look at what's on this screen, this is that taxonomy node we had before, right? It's a grouping of services underneath it. When you think about solution owners, don't think about those people that own that individual service, like that EMEA networking we're on, right? Think of also people that own those groups of services, right? So all the things in security, or all the licensing and permitting applications, or they own all the IT services. So when you think about bringing people into DPM, don't just think about the service owners or the people who have a stake in the projects that are going on that application or on that service. You also want to think about the people that own the groups of them, right? So if you can come in here and see, okay, I have all these new people coming in, using my services, or this is my overall CSAT, right? We're bubbling up all that information to that stakeholder that owns that group, that chunk of services, right? So there's views that are interesting to both. And then what you could do is you can come down into the individuals. So this is the taxonomy node that we had before. And here we're calling them the groups. But also you can come down to customer case management and go to the individual offerings. So if you remember, it's portfolio and then taxonomy node, right? And then there could be multiple levels of these taxonomy nodes. Mostly I recommend one level, but I know some people have done 2 levels. So usually it's the top level is the portfolio. The next level are the folders or the taxonomy nodes. And then after that, you go into the individual services. So if somebody owns customer case management and everything underneath it, right, there's that same owner there that they can say, okay, I want to see all of my things. So I own networking for the campus, and I want to see all the individual networking that I'm providing to the different dorms and the different schools, right? So I could have a list of all those things underneath it, and I'd be able to go into that area and see the overall metrics just for that one service.
Hey, John, this is Mitch. I'm sure you've covered this before, so forgive me for asking. Where are the technical services and technical services offering located?
So they would be under here too. It doesn't care if it's a business service or a technical service.
Okay, I thought I heard you say that only business services, business service offerings, and business applications are in DPM.
Yep, you can do technical services too. The one thing you can't do right now is application services.
Okay, but you can do technical services and technical service offerings.
Yep.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And Caitlin, I think you said Tokyo for app services. Is that right?
We are going to be introducing it in our May release, actually.
Oh, cool. So even sooner.
Yep.
So if you on app services, I know a lot of people are working on that because they started with ITOM. Those won't be able to be grouped in here right now. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, and that's coming in Tokyo, the app services. You're talking about the new application services table, not the legacy table, CMDB CI service, which also has services classified as application services.
I think it's CMDB CI service auto, right? Caitlin is the one.
That's right. That's right. And we will also be including dynamic CI groups.
Okay, cool.
Lou, you're not interested in them, are you?
Yeah, that's smart. Those are awesome.
Caitlin, in the future, are we going to be able to show relationships between the app services and the business and technical services?
That's right. Yes, in the May release. Yep.
Thank you.
Sure.
So as you drill down on here, you'll be able to see the individual services underneath the bucket. So what I did here is I went into customer service and support, and there was a details tab on there. So these are really nice views too, to get the listing of all of them, and then you can be able to drill down. So there's a little bit of a different look and feel. So I think these are really nice, like I said, to roll things out to the business so that they can get some visibility into their specific things. Now, the other thing.
So that was my question really quick, John. So, you have the service owners and all that. And then, so here, we're trying to map to the business capability, right? To speak the same language as the business.
Yep.
Here, we don't see business capability per se, but we can say they can create their own personal portfolio based on what they care about, regardless of service owners. So we have it structured at the enterprise level based on service owners, taxonomy node owners, all the way up through the portfolio owner. But then it's agnostic when it comes to the business side of things. They say, okay, I consume these and I want to pull these into my portfolio for my view so they can see how that's performing based on their need, and then they can attack IT based on their portfolio view.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. That's exactly right, because the one thing Caitlin identified for us in a few meetings, and Caitlin, jump here if you want, but they don't really differentiate. Like, some people like apps, some people are going to be looking at offerings, some people are only going to be looking at services, and differentiating between those, right? Having 10 or 15 different places to go, depending on which one of the people they are, was a real pain in the neck. So this lets them bring whatever they want in, right? They could bring all these different things in. And some may look at apps only out of the app structure and be looking at capability mapping, and others may be looking at the services.
Yeah, okay. I mean, it opens it up. It's almost I was going down a path of wanting to force the business to look at business services, right? I don't want them. We're trying to change our culture to say, hey, what is it that you consume? You consume a business service, right? So look here. Now we're bringing it all back in. So I guess it doesn't really matter.
That's exactly right. And my hope here, right, is that we're going to be able to go on and people in the business, right? Hey, I own virtual private networking. Why isn't this data here? Right. So you get it actually, and I don't know why this is going real slow. My instance is getting hammered. We need to go lobby for a bigger instance for these, all the stuff we got going in here. But this, we should have them asking, why aren't my demands showing up? Or why am I, right? So you get this top down demand for putting the data in the right spot, instead of us going crazy with CSDM trying to arrange everything, but not really seeing the benefit out of it. But by having the stuff in the right spot, I think once we all get off, it'll probably be better for us. But having it all in the right spot is the big thing, right? So then, yeah, like somebody's looking at fish and wildlife, or somebody's looking at a business app, right? And they want to see the data in there. They want to see, why does this guy have data and I don't? And that's what I'm hoping it drives, right? So that we have real requirements for this data that we're pulling in, instead of us just, doing it for incident resolution. And I think that's the big value that I'm working towards in the end.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, the same thing on here with business application, and this gets a little bit to what you're talking about, Mike, on the info tab. Here you'll see the business capabilities that the applications map to. So if you are that mature where you do have your capabilities table populated, you can see that this Blackboard app ties into teaching and learning. And then we can kind of walk it through the CSDM here as we attach the different services to it, or once we get the application services in here. I don't think we can see it today, but we'll be able to link all those things together. I saw a sneak peek of some of the other cool stuff is Caitlin's doing. So I think, Caitlin, will you have a tab on here too for dependencies, or will it only be on the like a dependency tree that's service only, or will that only be on the service offering?
No, we're introducing them right now. We're in design phase around surfacing that visual representation of the relationships between in this example, a business application, its application services and business capabilities, like building that visual out. So that will be coming, and we're not exactly sure, you know, where it will live or how it will work, but it will be for all solutions that are shown in DPM.
Okay.
And are we sticking based on the 24-hour? Because in order to see a trend, you have to go all the way down to the offering, as I've been playing with it. And then you're looking at the top layer for the day, the past 24 hours, and how it performed for the day. Is there anything about being able to say, okay, because we are on a month cycle, right? How are we doing so far this month, right? And so is there a display at the top level that in DPM that shows that, or is the top level, like as you have your weights up into the service and into the taxonomy node, that taxonomy node, I think, is looking at the past 24 hours and how it's performed the past 24 hours. Is there an adjustment there, or do I understand that wrong, where we can say, hey, I want that top layer to show how we're progressing so far this month, or to have that option to be able to choose a period of time beyond just we're going into the offering and seeing the trends at the offering layer?
Do you have
Really good question. So really quick, John, I don't know if you have the performance snapshot on one of the services, but or even you could go to a taxonomy node, but there are start and end dates that you can select on the detail view of a service or offering that will basically update the widgets on that page to reflect that time period. And so right now, visually, the data is collected or as like a count or a percent. It's in a single score. But we do also have out-of-box KPIs that provide more of the trend or the time series chart that will be visible actually on the service or on the offering. So there's a lot of flexibility with the different ways that you can view metrics without having to drill all the way down. What we've provided out of box is essentially just kind of a starting point. I don't know, John, if you have a KPI group that we could just show the start and end date.
Well, I have the one group here that I just created just to get everything on there was, and then I went back and ran it. So you're talking about here, like the performance snapshot?
Yeah, so if you go to one of the service pages that has a performance snapshot on it.
Okay. You mean in the here?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. And go back to the all enterprise services. So this one, if I click on overview for customer service and support.
Yes, so do you see the start and end date to the right, like above the 4 widgets? So that's where you can change the duration of time that you want to look at these specific metrics. And then
I was going to say, I don't have line charts on here, so that's why it's not showing them, but it should show the historical.
So yeah, so we have different KPI groups and then different ways that you could actually visualize those groups. So I think one of the out-of-box KPI groups that we provide shows incidents by priority in a time series. And so if you were to update the start and end dates, you could then see the incident by priority for the last month. As well as single scores to represent the total counts. And so this is, and I'm not sure, John, I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole, but this is what we call a KPI group, this performance snapshot. And what we did was, because we know there are different types of metrics that need to be tracked on different taxonomy nodes, services, offerings, and like the different number of metrics, different ways to view the metrics. It's a really flexible way that you can define what you want to track on each service and offering, and you can add more than one KPI group, and you can choose how you would like those to be visualized. So there's a lot of flexibility, but that start and end date will give you the ability to choose the time period you want to look at that data.
And these are the ones that are going to collect it all, right, Caitlin? The two. The two
Okay,
DPM.
cool.
So these are the ones you got to make sure that are running too. So some of the times I see that where people don't have this, you have to reset this user. Like we had to do this, I think on yours, right, Lou? We had to reset the run as, and then we went back in time a little bit for the first job, just so we would get some historical data instead of having to wait till tomorrow, right, for it to populate.
Yeah, set it back to 180 days.
Yeah. So what we did is we were able to run these two jobs to get us some historical data.
Okay, perfect. So let me understand that, right? So I can have a different KPI view. So like there's three views. I'm going to want the end user, or not the end users, the consumers of this, right? For the service owner, for the business line. What would be key to us would be how are we doing this month so far? How did we do last month? And how are we doing so far this year, right? Because we have key performance and we have certain goals to achieve for the year, for the month, right? And then exactly how are we doing right now in comparison to that? So if we had a 97% availability goal, right, that's for the month and for the year, right? I'd want to be able to go in there and click on that and say, okay, how am I doing this month? How did I do last month? And how am I doing this year so far? And I can have those three different views. Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, yep. So you can change the start and end dates and it will update the data that you're seeing here based on that time period that you set. And then you can choose different ways that you would want to visualize the metrics. So those metrics that you're seeing can and should be changed to reflect the types of metrics that you want to track and what you're reporting on. And then you can set how you want to visualize it and then use the start and end dates to give you the right time frames or the ranges of time.
Yeah, for some of that analysis, you might be better off coming all the way back into PA though too, right? Like if I want to look at new incidents, because that breakdown is there for you on the service.
Okay.
Right? So if I look at the all these new breakdowns come for you with DPM. So if I look at the number of new incidents, critical incidents. So have
Right,
you
you go
worked on
back
these?
to PA.
And then the breakdowns. Right, so you get some new breakdowns here by the service portfolios, the subcategory, or even the service offerings. So this is more, this gives you a lot of that, that analytical stuff that you can do. So if I drill down to there, now I can do like comparisons and a lot of really technical stuff, right? On as a bad example, but here you can do all kinds of the PA stuff that you have. Have you used this before, Mike? Right. So there's a lot of comparisons in here. So I don't know how much of it you'd want to go back and do that part versus, so you probably want to use there's probably an advanced view to that, right, from here, and then go down to the advanced views that can do some real grouping and trending and stuff like that. So can you drill, Caitlin, would you be able to drill into PA from anywhere in here yet? That might be a cool thing.
No, not right now. So if you were to drill into the at this level, if you clicked on one of them, you can see a breakdown by the child services. And then we also have supporting indicators, but those do not link directly into PA.
That might be cool to like do what Mike's doing. Like if you hit new incidents and if you had a little like analytics thing here and then it popped you down to here, right, on the service offering.
Yeah.
That would
Yeah,
be,
I like that. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
because then, because then you could do the basic, just changing the dates, and then the advanced like that would be pretty cool. A lot of people too, it's interesting how many people don't know about, that all the data that we're collecting here now with DPM, like the raw data is really interesting too. All right. So that's just kind of a high level overview. Your solution consultants should be able to demo this to you. So if you do want to get a full demo and really, look at it, you can go ahead and get them to come in and sit with you and go through feature by feature. So everybody's getting trained on it. There's going to be some training on Now Learning. I think you said the end of March, right, Caitlin? I keep picking on you now.
Say again?
The end of March for Now Learning on this is the target?
I believe so, yes. Yep.
Okay. So that's a little bit, just kind of a high level overview. Anybody else that installed it that has any comments, stuck on anything, questions? We got the A team on here helping us, so. Lou, were you able to get some data in yours yet?
Yeah, I am seeing the data, but it's a hunt and peck right now, making sure all the underlying, you didn't show on the service offering and the business service, the edit widget weight, the edit metric weights. You want to
Yep.
show that? And I don't quite understand how that's relevant. Maybe Caitlin knows with regards to those, what rolls up to the digital portfolio management workspace.
Okay. So I see a lot of people that other people that run service departments too. Would you see making this available? Anita, I saw you climb in, chime into the room. Is this stuff that you would use in your new role, or you would give to other people across the university? Mitch and anybody?
Well, I mean, the softball answer is yes. I mean, of course, data is in high demand, and building this out is going to be very tough. Getting the buy-in to get all the people that are required to support getting the data correct and maintaining the data, I think is going to be hard. The OCM around teaching them to use this as default place to look for service information is going to be tough. But I think, we all see the benefit of the service reviews, right? Building those Excel reports and showing them to our stakeholders and our IT departments have always been helpful to see how things are going. But this is just a place in platform to basically have the same information. So once it's built out right and is adopted, I think it's going to be very powerful from an insight perspective. Is that helpful?
Yeah, definitely. The other thing I see here too, which is really nice, is we are all trying to, get to those models, right? And we spent a lot of time talking about the CSDM, and it's really good that we spend some time on it. But getting all this wiring done, a lot of people are waiting to say, hey, let's build out one from end to end. What's nice about this too is if you populate any of these tables, if I do the business app table, I have like a lightweight APM, right? Because I can go in there and look at the business app and get some data on it now. And it's not a list view, right? It's a view that actually makes sense for people that are coming at it from the business side. And the same, if we just start populating these tables, you don't have to worry about the connections right away. But as you put the connections in, it'll get richer. But that's the other thing I like about it. Right away on these is all you got to do to get these lists on the end here that we're looking at, all these list views, is populate the tables. And the worst thing that can happen, right, is you have people asking for more data in there. So I think that's a really big thing. Even though it's just a simple list view, it brings up something different. That's not a form. It's not a typical form that we see. It's more of a report on the application or on the service. So I think that accelerates the CSDM work a little bit, because I think it'll drive the need for CSDM instead of us trying to push it up. Hey, look at these cool models we built. Look at all the stuff you can do on it, right? But now you're creating a pull from the business side because you're showing them kind of what's possible to see on an application or a service.
Yeah, that's what I love about Service Builder. It's actually, if you go ahead and bring it back and it'll help you build the wires too. So if you have a business service or a technical service, then it builds the wire to the capabilities to the,
Yep.
That's awesome.
Cool. All right, any other comments on the, this is what I really like too, and it's just going to get richer. so this is a good screen if you're starting to talk to people in the business. I love this slide here because it's showing us that if you think about what we had to do before to get this data, right? You had to go to 4 different products to get the business app data at an APM, and then that the business application and the business capability table. We had to go over here and do incident reports if we were even classified by the services and the offerings, right? Because a lot of people, the organization still has incident as the top thing they report on. Who cares about incidents, right? We care about the service that the incidents are against. So this, I think that classification is a big thing. And then, and of course, on ops, right? Bringing that information up from ops and seeing all those things. So I think it's a good mix of the data, scraping that little bit of data from all the product areas that solution owner person is really interested in. So this slide will be available for you guys. And I think Caitlin shared it last time, but I'll have it in this deck too. It's one we'll probably use a lot. And hopefully that you guys are using too, as you try to explain to these new people that you say, hey, I want to give you a new report and check this out, right? And I think there's that amount of people that have been just struggling to get this data for years that'll love it. But some of them, you're going to have to sit there and explain what does plan, build, run mean? And then, what information is coming into where from what area.
John, there's a question and a comment. The question is, when you went into the workspace first, did you show, did I miss it? Where you have to, speaking of how you get the data into workspace, where you have to go into the KPI group and set that up at the portfolio, and then each one of the KPI groups in the native user interface.
Oh, the ones that Caitlin was talking about before when we were talking about the KPI groups?
Yeah, in order to even see the data in workspace, you go back into the native UI and type digital, and then you go, yes, those.
Okay.
Where the performance snapshot, you have to associate it with the portfolio first, and then you have to associate all those KPIs with the actual offerings that you're expecting to get that data over into the workspace. Yeah,
and that's the step I missed, right? When we were sitting there scratching our heads, not getting data. You have to go in here and do, and Justin set me straight on this one. So performance snapshot is the KPI group, and then you associate it with the portfolio, and then it's going to go down. Like right now, the only one I had data in was all enterprise services, but I don't know who else to find some of these other ones, right? But let's say Sean's portfolio, we wanted to start populating that. We could just say Sean's portfolio, and then at all levels, we'd start getting all the data that's in the performance snapshot.
Right. And then my comment was with regards to the plan, build, run method. I think it's a big detractor if you're not using some of the availability planner, project management, demand, because the workspace has those in it. And if you're hosting that up through a delegation model to individuals to manage their portfolios, wouldn't they see those other things and they're just going to be blank, right? Kind of, they're not populated because you don't have a subscription for those things.
I think in plan, you can always at least have ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
In build, I think you will be blank in build. But I think in where do changes come in?
Well, they're both in run and they're also in build. If you scroll down, I think you should see some changes related to the build activity.
Yeah, and I keep telling Caitlin we need a buy now button for all the blank stuff, so you guys can get new licenses.
Yeah, that would be awesome, where you can toggle all the things you don't have a subscription for, you don't see, right?
People would kill us for that one.
That was kind of my point, right? Because I'm not, without, like if the customer doesn't buy those underlying things and I show them this dashboard, they're going to see a lot of things that are just not being populated. Now that's opportunity and potential, right? Okay, you want to populate it, buy it. But it's also a detractor because they're like, okay, I'm not interested, moving on.
Yep, there will be some in there. And I think these views, like if you just give them the view only into there, they just need the role DPM user. And I believe, I forget who went over this. I hate to say it wrong, Caitlin, but I believe that's just an end user role that you need, right, for that user?
I'm sorry, for which user?
For the DPM user, if they come in and just want to view those views, but not drill down into the records, that role does not need a license, right?
Yeah, so when you give the user the DPM manager role, they can read that data.
Okay. And then that does not consume a licensed DPM manager, right? It's just an end user.
Correct. Yeah. And the
Yeah,
role is SN DPM underscore manager. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it installs they can actually get it on their left as an idle role. They can get it on their left nav. I had to remove it because we were not ready to provide that to everybody to start peppering me with a bunch of questions,
Oh, really? It pops up.
Yeah, it was installed under idle.
Oh, yeah. With idle, it comes automatically. Okay. Good to know. All right. There was some questions last time. Who had some SDLC component questions? Are they on today? Somebody was saying, can we get an update on SDLC and CSDM 4.0? Okay. I got a little update from Mark. So most of the stuff for CSDM 4.0, and this is out of the CSDM 4.0 white paper draft, which is available on the community. And I can put that community article. I was going to drop it in so you guys had it, but you can go get that today off here. And if you guys want to see this community, the CSDM, this is the source data for the most up-to-date CSDM information. So I will drop this in here. It's a good one to bookmark. I always put it in the newsletter too, but just in case. So here you can go ahead and you'd have to scroll down a little bit and you can get the draft of CSDM 4.0. So this is the most up-to-date version. I talked to Mark, they're still doing some things, but when it comes down to these SDLC components, don't worry about them yet. They're in the model and they're starting to talk about them and you can read about them in the paper, but they're not used in any of the products yet. So most of what is wired today, you don't have to wait for these to come out. In other words, in order to take advantage of digital portfolio management. A lot of people are thinking, oh, before I could see the related projects and the related demands in those things, I need to have these components in, and that's definitely not true. You will be able to see it just like I showed you where I connected the idea to our network service, right? You can do that today. So as long as you're labeling those demands or those ideas or those projects, you will be able to have all those linkages in here without these SDLC components. So the SDLC components will add some to it and give you a little bit of a different flavor if you go through and read the white paper, because you're building it all as a product, so it's all grouped together. But that is still a ways out to when the products will start leveraging it. So the idea here is Mark's building the model first, Mark and his team, and then over time, the different groups. I know, like Mitch, you guys are using some DevOps, and I know a couple people are using DevOps. That stuff will start to connect together with those new objects. Any other thing to add, anybody on that? Anything that you've seen or waiting on with SDLC components? I know that was a big question last time. All right. So we talked a little bit about the user, and I did put the user in here, like I said, so you can use these slides. So I'll share this deck out, and you can either get out of this one, or like I said, Caitlin's deck too has it that we shared last time. The last area I want to spend a little bit of time on is this has been resonating really well with a lot of the executive teams I've been working with. So the CIOs, the CTOs. And when you start looking at all these records that are coming down, right, it's not looking at our model, right? So it's not looking at this model, which we're used to, right? But it's looking at the life cycle of the requests that are coming in, the work to build these models, the work to fix these things when things are going wrong with the services, and then the work to build the new ones, right? So what I could do here is I could pop you out here and I could have a link, and I'll link these to ours, but you can have your link to your idea queue, your link to your demand queues, right? So you're pushing through ideas and then you're pushing them. Some of those are becoming demands for work. And what you can use DPM for is this rationalization part. So a lot of times if you can get hold of this demand pipeline, because so many organizations don't have hold of it, everybody's doing what they want, right? So they're saying, hey, I need this new thing. I'm buying this new app. Hey, IT, give me a server, right? And a lot of you are still in that boat. But to move out of that boat, right, where you inject yourself into that demand pipeline and you see the new demand coming in, this is a really good way to follow. Now you can use DPM here to do that app rationalization. Remember you saw that list, those lists at the end? So I can look at all of the services that I have coming out. I can, right, hey, somebody's already building a travel request in this other agency or this other school. Why am I building another? Can they get together and build the same travel request? And they're using this app to build the travel request. Can they use this other app to do it? Right. So all those things up here, you can see the capabilities. I can see my apps. So I can look at that whole portfolio in that list view, right, that we had at the end. So I think it's a really good way for doing this strategic architecture section and having somebody be able to vet those out really quickly, right? So I can go in and instead of looking at the data in portfolios or as the service owner, I'm looking at it as the architect. It's vetting these things that are coming in. As we drop down here, there's also, for those of you that have ITBM, what we're now calling the strategic portfolio management. So that's the new name for ITBM. You all have access to this investment. So the investment workspace will let you see all those demands that do get pushed through. They have to be funded at some point, right? So that investment gets vetted down here. And then there's all kinds of ways people are working, right? Whether it drops into a waterfall, whether it drops into a hybrid, or whether you're doing, traditional agile or moving into safe, there's the backlog for those. And then at the end, it's really the service that comes out of it, which we looked at today. So what's really nice about DPM is you can see this whole pipeline, right? So you can look at the service, and before it's even built, I can see the demands on it. I can see the ideas on it. And then as they're being built, I can see the projects. Once they hit production, I see that operational data, right? So DPM gives you that whole look here of all this stuff that's going on behind the scenes. And hopefully it's as smooth as this, right? Where you got it coming through, dropping in your backlog, getting vetted. And then as things start to happen, right, everything's around that service, right? So you're getting all that data in to run the business. All those measurable outcomes are being done automatically for you on those services because you got DPM. Now, as you start to come in, right, and do that operational data, a lot of your incidents are being classified against your services, right? That's ideally where we want to get to. Your problems are against the services, your changes are against the services. So they're coming back into the backlog from the operational support side. Right? And that's a really nice way to pull that work in. So everything on this screen with regard to the service, you have visibility to just in that DPM workspace. Right? So if you're training your business to understand how services are getting built, how they're getting improved, this is a great slide to do that on. And a lot of people are adopting this. And down here, you got to leave it a little universal because there are agile teams. There's still people working in waterfall, right? And we can accommodate all that on the platform. A lot of people have licenses here too and are just not using them. So I think this makes a lot of sense from a workflow perspective. And you guys can click through this, but it's a slide a lot of people found useful. What I'm going to do when I put this out there is all these things that are circled in green, you're going to be able to drill down to these, and I'll drill you into our work group environment. So if you want to talk about demand, you can drill in and see what a demand looks like. And we have all these records are in our demo system. So I'm going to hook all that up just so everybody can see and have that conversation internally, because I think this conversation goes really well with this conversation. Right? If you could talk to these managers and these portfolio owners about how they can see all the work that's going on to make their services better or to create new ones in their area, I think that goes a long way to winning that business over. All right, because that visibility is really important, and it's basically what you're giving them in DPM, right? I'm giving them access to all of it.
I have a
Any com-
question.
Sure.
So if you have, for example, a service offering called server infrastructure, right? And basically the purpose is so people can submit a catalog item request to provision a new server, and let's say just basically that catalog request is associated with the server infrastructure service offering. And then that service offering is under server infrastructure services, okay, or even infrastructure services. If that CI on the incident problem or change is that particular service offering, then everything's going to roll up into digital portfolio management, as you just said. But let's say the server is the CI, especially for change, because for change, they're not going to submit the server. You know, we have them doing that today, and it's kind of a, you know, it's not going to work because what the heck are you changing, right? You're changing server infrastructure service offering. Well, there's, you know, thousands of servers under that, where in change you select a specific server. But even for incident, if they call in an incident, they say, hey, this server just went down, and they make that server the CI and not the service offering, then the server is not associated and won't roll up. So is there a best practice? Yeah, thank you for showing that, for basically allowing them to select the server and then tie in that server to the service offering. Like in the case I just said, the service offering would be server infrastructure service offering, right? But then all the servers are somehow tied to that. How would that work?
Yeah, I think ideally on these forms, we're going to want it to rain down, or like you and I talked about, if you put the offering here, which we're training the help desk to do, that we don't have to start with the service. We should be able to populate the service from the offering or the offerings from the service, right? We should be able to come in either way here.
Yeah,
And then
the rain down is a nice term for it, because, you know, hey, it's raining, but it's a top down, bottom up, and we're doing bottom up right now, because obviously if you're new to ServiceNow and you get a new Z-boot, you get those fields on the form. But 3 years ago, they weren't necessarily there. I mean, business services was always there, but that combination was not always on the form. And now it is, and you have to back into it. So my question is, select the CI, but allow the infrastructure CIs, whether it's a laptop or a server, to be somehow tied to the offering.
yeah, it's tied through the app service. So when you do the
Yeah.
impacted service analysis here, it should still walk up that tree.
Yeah, all right, good enough.
Yeah, there's a
So where there's going to be multiple service offerings or services that roll up from that configuration item that might depend on that CI.
That's a good point. Mm-hmm.
There are, yeah, that's kind of what this is doing down here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
On a
which one?
change,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
on a change, when you run the impact assessment, it should find all of the upstream services that are affected by the configuration item. So it runs off that, feeds into a script, and then it populates these when you run, basically populate impacted services. So it's
Got
going to
it.
assume it does hurt everything upstream from it.
Yeah, well, I was thinking more like the managed by group, where you can set in the CI class manager, and then you can have it automatically go to that entire class, and, you know, where you would basically have the service offering added to the CI, and then anytime you selected that CI, it would automatically populate that offering. But to the
That would
point
be
that was
new.
just made, that CI could be, you know, tied to different offerings, like more than one, I suppose. So.
Yeah, especially like an ESX host, right?
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Sure. So I'll put these in here too. I want to put another link in here. I'm going to share one more link with you that was really cool. And I don't know if she's on today, but there is a Now Learning course that that has a lot of this stuff in here, and it's really thorough to go through it all. And see if I can find that, and I'll close out with that. I'll put it in the newsletter too, and I think I already have it linked in the newsletter. But it's really cool that we instead of just the paper, we also have if you go to this Now Learning, and let me put this in the chat too so you guys can pull it down. But because I just stole slides out of here, just like I stole some slides out of Caitlin's deck. This is the deck where I took those pictures of the change and the incident. And if you go to Now Learning, that link I just put in the chat, you'll be able to download this. And this has the, how do you do an incident? How do you do a change? Like, how do you start thinking about using the CSDM, right? Wiring all these things in there. So it's a big deck. And that incident picture I just showed you in the change picture, it's down around slide 110. But it's a really good place to go in there and start, getting the CMDB in shape, and then convincing the end users, right? Because that's the other people besides the managers. You got to convince them that they want this data, and then you got to go and train all your end users, right, on how to get it in. So this is a super thorough deck. I don't know if she's on today, but this there's workshops. This will take you through a whole workshop about how to get to like a service-driven organization. And I'll keep scrolling down here. I think those views I just showed you are just a small part of this. So the CMDB data manager, this is, I think, what you were talking about, Lou. And then we go down a little more, and those incidents and changes are all in there. So this is like a Bible for getting to the right place so that you can fully leverage the DPM and also all the stuff that has to come into it to feed it properly. So, oh man, I'm 2 minutes over. I'm blabbing away. All right, thank you, everybody. Appreciate your time, and I will get the recording out and also a link to this material so you can start using it.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.